We got Fuhrman, we got Kyle, we got Dan, and we've got warm weather here in Ontario for Z. So it's going to be the equivalent of 82 Fahrenheit. So that means people's minds wander away from hockey, and game one of the Stanley Cup Final did everything in its power to get people's attention. If you wanted goals, we had them.
We had goals, and then some. It is now, I believe, 8-1-1, the last 10 game ones of the Stanley Cup Final that have all exceeded odds makers' expectations when it comes to offense. And unfortunately for the Carolina Hurricanes, it looked like it was all going to be roses in Raleigh with a 2-0 early lead. Nikolai Ehlers on the board early, and that's when things started to spiral out of control. It was essentially Vegas beating Carolina at their own game, winning puck battles, cycling in the offensive end, and an old school give and go for a player that Vegas Golden Knights fans in the front office wanted to run out of town just 2 playoff series ago, that suddenly has another high leverage tally in Tomas Hertl, bringing him one step closer to being the first member of the much maligned San Jose Sharks core trying to get his name on the Stanley Cup.
Hertl.
I have no response or rebuttal. Kyle, do you have anything for
Yeah, it's just I have no idea what I was going to ask you next.
Whenever Hertl's name would come up in highlights, that's what I do, and it stems back from Dana Carvey's movie no one watched, where he says turtle.
The bigger question here I have for you guys, I mean, Mitchell Marner now has moved to an odds-on favorite to win the Conn Smythe Trophy. Not a bet that I'd be running to make at this juncture, knowing that I'd much rather have a Vegas Golden Knights series ticket if I thought Marner was going to win it. But will the city of Toronto continue to stand if Marner is the one taking home the individual accolades?
You know, Todd, I would say that what's happening with the fan base here is I think they're realizing that there was a role that they had played in his departure, in that, oh, look what we have here. This guy's an elite NHL player that's on the verge of winning the Conn Smythe in his first year with a new team, a team that wasn't completely a cup team last year, that he might have made a cup team. And so this is like the ultimate version of, oh, it's not.
Kyle's gone.
Me and you.
Oh, you froze there for a minute, Kyle. I just want to finish.
Dan, we know Marner's been a polarizing personality. Apparently, all the folks at Bell Media wanted to cut the fiber optics going to Kyle when he had such negative things to say about the organization and the media as a whole.
I wanted to add this. Here's what happened in my mind. The Toronto fan base bought into the hockey mentality, was kind of bully him out of town because they saw him kind of getting bullied in a way by his teammates. We saw that viral clip of Nylander yelling at him on the bench, and they bought into that when they've now got buyer's remorse, not buyer's remorse, yard sale remorse, where you let something go at the yard sale. I shouldn't have let that go.
I think there are a number of people who have to try and wear this if Marner goes on to not only winning a cup this year in the Conn Smythe, but having a very successful remainder of his career as a member of the Golden Knights, because he's not the only one that has talked about how difficult it is to win in that city. And I think back to when they traded for Ryan O'Reilly and thought that he was going to be the veteran presence to get them across the finish line, give them that grit, the tenacity, and the center. And what does O'Reilly do when he's available free agency? He goes, you know what? I've had enough of this Toronto market. I'm going to Nashville. I want to be out of the limelight. And that should have been the proverbial canary in the coal mine for everyone at MLSE to look in the mirror and go, you know what? We have a veteran here. He is from Toronto. We thought he would want to be the face of this franchise going forward. And rather than competing with a maple leaf on his sweater, he goes, I've had enough of this garbage. I want out. I want to do something different. And the holdovers at this point, unfortunately, aren't the core that are going to get this team across the finish line. And it poses some very difficult questions that, of course, new management has to ask on a variety of fronts.
Gentlemen, I'm back on the show now, and I just wanted to say I'd received a note. Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment is a good and proud organization, and they don't tend to hold their foot against the fire based on anything we say here in today's show. Of course, my opinion is reflective of I'm just kidding. I'm back, and I have a question for you about this salary as a whole, and we're talking about these guys that have been around a long time and want to leave. Do they just get anything they can for Morgan Riley at this point just to move on from that situation, to allow him a fresh start somewhere else? What are we looking at there?
I mean, what does the market look like for Morgan Riley? How many teams have in their heads that they think Morgan Riley is the missing link for the kind of piece that they need to improve their overall preseason outlook. I mean, Morgan Riley at this point, maybe he's a number 2 D-man pairing and a number 3 on a good hockey team. I do think if you're the Leafs, though, if someone's going to offer you draft capital in any capacity, it's something you have to consider. The mock trades that still crack me up is like the Morgan Rileys to Edmonton for Darnell Nurse to Toronto, just so both of these guys can get a fresh start. It reminds me of, when you used to live in a dorm room and you go, you know what? I really like that recliner that's been handed over about 13 different times through the fraternity house, but I'm going to trade it for another recliner that has the crap kicked out of it over the course of the last 12 years. And suddenly it's going to give my room a new robust look, but you're putting more lipstick on a pig. And I don't think it solves any problems. At this point, though, I do think the Leafs need a complete shakeup, and Morgan Riley's not going to be the puck-moving defenseman that they were led to believe, thinking that they could be a true number 1 for a cup-contending team.
Furzy, grab a pen, or you're a smart guy. You can probably remember all these. I want you to rank these in order.
I got a notepad.
Of happening as next head coach of the Leafs. Rank them in order.
David Carl, not on the list. David Carl, not on the list.
Jay Woodcroft.
Okay.
Peter Laviolette.
Oh, God.
Patrick Waugh.
Okay.
Manny Malhotra.
So, in my opinion, Manny would be tops on their wish list. If they could have everything go the direction that they wanted, Manny Malhotra would be number 1. And I think that would make a world of sense, given that this Leafs team needs a fresh voice. They need
Malhotra just got hired in Vancouver?
All right, well, you're breaking news for us on the show. And so Manny Malhotra, I said, would be tops on the Leafs wish list because it's not going to happen. So when I look at the other 3 names that you rattled off, I think Jay Woodcroft deserves another shot to be a head coach in the National Hockey League. Now, does he want the Toronto job? Great question, and one that remains to be seen. But if they made him a Godfather offer he couldn't refuse, I think Woodcroft would be foolish not to take the job. Patrick Waugh makes a little bit more sense because he's closer to the game now. But I do worry because he didn't exactly get the most out of the New York Islanders over the last handful of seasons. And then when we look at Peter Laviolette, are we really going down this retread route again, where it's the same names recycled over and over again? Somewhere along the way, you have to stop the cycle and bring in a different voice. I think if you're Toronto and you strike out with Jay Woodcroft, if that's the direction they want to go, that you have to look a little bit off the beaten path and think outside the box.
I have to apologize to Canucks fans. He was hired on Tuesday as next head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. It is so much not in my algorithm that it did not show up anywhere in my feeds.
Dan, let's be honest. Are the Vancouver Canucks in anyone's algorithms in any capacity, including folks that actually live in British Columbia?
I was just going to say, we could be filming this in Victoria right now, and you still wouldn't have known that news because it's not really that interesting if he can pull them up from AHL franchise status. Here's a question for you about a coach coming to a team like the Leafs, Todd. How does a guy that's potentially going to take this job balance that inner thing where it's like, I want to be the guy that turns this around versus the practical sense and all of the difficulties and all of the nonsense that comes with helming a franchise like the Toronto Maple Leafs?
It's hard. And I don't want to say it's professional suicide by any stretch of the imagination, because that's not fair to what it means to be behind the bench for this proud organization, albeit one that has suffered for a long, long time. And still feels even further away now as we go towards the 2026-2027 season than we would have we had this discussion 3 to 5 years ago, given the dynamics in the Atlantic Division, the fact that Montreal is headed in the right direction. The Florida Panthers are going to be back. I mean, we saw how healthy Sasha Barkov looked in winning a gold medal at the World Championships. So you're looking at a pecking order right now where Toronto, at best, if things break the right way, is competing for a wild card in the Eastern Conference. So I think you need a longer-term deal. You need to make sure you're pulling in the same direction as Shaka and Matt Sundin there, going, things aren't going to rapidly improve. We need to burn this thing down to build back stronger. And I think the $100 million question always becomes, can you do it in a hockey-crazed city like Toronto? Can you do it when you have William Nylander, Jonathan Tavares to a lesser extent, and of course, Austin Matthews? And what does it look like? Because I don't think it's as simple as a retooling for this team to be competitive again and a legitimate cup contender. I think it's a lot more advanced and a much longer procession than that to try and return them to where they're competing for an Atlantic Division crown and vying for a deep run in the Eastern Conference playoffs.
I still can't get over the fact that Pierre Maguire said Gavin McKenna is not a guaranteed first pick for the Leafs. And in my mind, that would be the worst decision for this franchise if they did not select him. Your thoughts?
There are more and more mock drafts, and I'm not going to sit here and claim that I am huge when it comes to the NHL draft. I don't have a big board by any stretch. I'm not grinding throughout Ontario and the Western provinces watching these players live as members of the CHL, but it does appear that there's a growing sentiment that they could look to go in a slightly different direction. Now, I think this decision for Toronto is a little bit more nuanced than Montreal when they take what we thought at the time was a pretty big swing. As you started to hear buzz about Shane Wright falling down some of those draft boards, Montreal going in the direction of Juraj Slafkovsky, which is a decision that I think will continue to bear fruit going forward. But if Gavin McKenna were to turn into a superstar at the NHL level and the Leafs didn't draft him first overall, I'm not sure that's something that you could live down in any capacity with a Canadian-born superstar, not one from the GTA, but at the same time, if McKenna ends up in another Canadian market or somewhere else, there are a lot of folks that are going to ask some tough questions. So I don't know if I'd want to be in the front office and have my feet put to the fire to try and make this decision, because there was growing discussion about Sternberg coming over from Sweden and the ties that maybe Matt Sundin had to the youngster there. We saw that highlight reel goal at the World Championships, and some other players who have also thrown their names in the discussion. McKenna is still a very heavy favorite to be the first pick in the draft, but it would not shock me, gentlemen, if that number continued to come down. And I don't think Pierre is on an island saying that there's increasing interest for other players to be picked in that top spot.
The guy's from Whitehorse. Come on.
That's what
Dan, how many rinks do we actually think there are in Whitehorse?
More than you would think.
Here's the question though, too. Like, I think does the fact that he is also a Canadian player not sort of affect this and sort of force their hand, because their big superstar right now is American, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there is something about having a Canadian player as a potential superstar and a number 1 draft pick on this team that has to force their hand to some degree.
So the question I have, Kyle, and I'm not going to say that I've sat in a room and done a character profile of Gavin McKenna. He does come from a small town in Whitehorse. And is he the kind of guy that could embrace the stardom or the microscope or the fishbowl that he is going to be placed in as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs? I think if you're Toronto right now and you're building a roster, whether it's with the number 1 overall pick or you're looking at free agency, that's something that very much has to factor into the decision tree, because we've seen it, maybe not as much in the NHL where there are only a handful of markets where you feel like you're, the 800-pound gorilla in the room. But we've seen it in Major League Baseball. I mean, players that have gone to the New York Yankees and just wilted under the weight of the pinstripes, whether they were foreign-born or otherwise, that has to be something that plays a role in the calculations in terms of which guys you see as the figureheads, the linchpins, and the foundational pieces that you're building around. And maybe McKenna is not necessarily that guy. Again, speaking out of turn here, don't know that to be the case, merely speculating if that's factoring into how Toronto wants to go about using this top pick.
I have your Whitehorse answer. 3 rinks. 1 is Olympic sized. And then during the winter, they have 30 outdoor rinks.
All right. So there you go. So you have a little bit more. And since winter lasts for 9+ months in Whitehorse throughout the year, for basically the majority of the year, they have plenty of sheets for kids and young adults to skate on.
Just him walking into the rink in Toronto in the middle of winter after having experienced Whitehorse winters, he's going to be in like a t-shirt. They're going to be like, this kid is tough.
I mean, shorts and flip-flops go a long way when it's, 7 below Celsius and you're coming into the rink, playing in Toronto, playing in Winnipeg, and playing in some other spots. Hell, look, even I was tough enough to wear flip-flops and shorts playing in New England. It was 24 degrees Fahrenheit. So I can only imagine the level of toughness when it comes to embracing cold weather that Gavin McKenna can endure compared to me.
Todd, the NBA Finals begin tonight. The San Antonio Spurs are taking on the New York Knicks. The Knicks had a relatively easy path through the Eastern Conference, as one tends to do because it's a relatively weak conference. However, the Spurs, of course, barely got through OKC, as you would expect. What does that say about the betting lines and the potential angles we'll look at this NBA championship from?
I'm extremely intrigued, Kyle, to see how these teams match up with one another and the kind of adjustments that get made. I mean, Mike Brown was close to getting fired by the Knicks probably about 6 weeks ago, and suddenly riding this 11-game winning streak going into the NBA Finals. He has been phenomenal, pulling the right strings, getting the most out of some of his role players, whether it's a Landry Shamet, getting Mikal Bridges to look like he's completely capable and competent on the offensive end. and they've blown through the competition. I know the East didn't provide a murderer's row, at least on paper, but it's not like the Knicks are winning these games by a bucket or two. They're doing things at a historical level. I mean, 236 points in terms of their margin of victory, I believe, over the last 11 games. And they are leaving no doubt in anyone's mind, especially in those closeout situations. Meanwhile, on the flip side of things, for San Antonio, it's a team that doesn't have to apologize to anyone. But I'll make the case that if OKC was fully healthy offensively and they didn't lose Jalen Williams and they didn't lose AJ Mitchell, that we're talking about the Thunder having a chance to defend their NBA crown as well. You've seen the betting market at Bet Rivers really respond to this, because coming into the conference finals, you'd have been looking at the Knicks, probably in that plus 230, plus 240 range as an underdog against the Spurs. That number now in that plus 60 range. So odds makers have no doubt been forced to kind of adjust the price tag here. I worry about the Spurs in game one. I think this gives the Knicks their best opportunity to steal one on the road if the Spurs aren't able to come back from that emotional high of knocking off the Thunder. I know it happened on Saturday, but 4 days isn't exactly a long time. And on the other side of things, can the Spurs do enough in terms of their guard rotation to take Jalen Brunson out of the mix and figure out the other ways that the Knicks are going to look to attack? I think the guy that I'm most interested by in the coaching box isn't a head coach on either team. It's Orlando Magic coach in waiting, Sean Sweeney, not to be confused with Sidney Sweeney in any capacity, and what kind of defensive game plans he devises to make the Knicks kind of beat them left-handed and not allow Jalen Brunson to go for 30, 40, or even the 60 spot he dropped on the Spurs. I think it was 2 seasons ago.
How jealous is Gary Bettman seeing this NBA final? The NBA has the New York effect. It is real. Most casual fans couldn't name a single Knick, yet they're going to tune in to see the Knicks against Wembayama. And that is what the NHL craves, and the NBA has eyeballs now because of it.
I mean, Gary Bettman should be thrilled that the get-in price for game one at the Lenovo Center is higher than what the get-in price will be for game one in San Antonio. Now, we'll completely ignore the fact that you probably need to liquidate multiple 401ks to be able to afford a ticket to see a game at MSG, whether it's game 3 or game 4. But you're right, Toolsy, the star power here with one of the biggest markets in the league, if not the biggest, that has long been starved to get to the NBA Finals for the first time since 1999, and the global phenomenon that is Victor Wembanyama, who is going to be one of the front runners for the MVP, not only next year, but for years to come. I mean, this is really the dream matchup for them in the NBA Finals. But don't tell that to Gary Bettman. In his State of the League address, did say he was thrilled that ratings were up. He's looking forward to having stronger leverage when they negotiate national TV contracts. And eventually, Gary Bettman will have an original 6-team return to the Stanley Cup Final. It just may not happen until the year 2040.
I love the Gary Bettman tell when he's annoyed with a question. He does. Well, he starts going like this. And he's like, I'm really pissed off, but I got to control my anger.
Here's the thing, Dan. I mean, Gary Bettman just needs to employ the Vegas Golden Knights PR staff. He wouldn't have to answer any question he didn't want to as part of this league-wide address. So he's got to keep that in mind. But the overall health of the NHL, and I can't speak to what the viewership numbers look like on Canadian soil, but here they're up with the broadcast partners, the ESPN and TNT. I really believe the league is in a better place than it's ever been with some of its star power. And yes, well, it's non-traditional markets with Vegas and Carolina fighting for a Stanley Cup. I think the league is a much more competitive product than we were having these discussions, say 10 to 15 years ago. And it was the same teams perennially fighting for the right to win it all.
Todd, before you go, we need some picks for this series. What do we like here? Like, do you have a prop? Do you have a line? Is OG Anunoby going to win the MVP?
I think OG is going to need things to really break well for him. Honestly, Kyle, at 100+1 where he opened, I would have said he was worth a dart throw. But with the number kind of shrinking in that 50 to 60 range, I can't see it. Cat has been a guy that's caught some buzz, given the fact that maybe San Antonio doesn't look to throw Wemby on him defensively, and he's going to have some opportunities to fill up a stat sheet, but just not enough juice, I don't think, to get me there. So if you're looking on the San Antonio side, I feel like if they're going to win, it's Wembanyama or bust. But from an overall player prop standpoint, the guys that I think can go out there and really exceed, odds makers' expectations, I'd be looking for Josh Hart. I think his offensive contributions are going to be extremely important for the Knicks, especially if the Spurs play some drop coverage and he's able to knock down a couple of threes early on. So I would look for him there. And if you're looking for a player to lead the series in made three-pointers, it appears that Mitch Johnson feels much more comfortable giving minutes to Julian Champagnie than he has Devin Vassell, who has kind of been the short shot in that market. So Champagnie would be a guy that I'd look at right around 3-1 to lead the series in three-pointers. And in terms of the NHL, I know people are going to call game 2 a must-win for Carolina, and rightfully so. But this is a Vegas team that didn't play well in game 1. I think Carolina looks significantly more shell-shocked. I know we've joked about Freddie Anderson kind of turning into a pumpkin. I think the Vegas Golden Knights offer a world of value to go out there and win game 2 and take a stranglehold of this series, much like they did in the Western Conference Finals against Colorado Avalanche.
Here's the prop bet I want to know. In game 1 of the NBA final tonight, how many shots of the Riverwalk in San Antonio will the broadcast show? My number's 2.5. Are you going over or under?
I'm going to go under 2.5, but I may have to reach out to some folks down there in San Antonio, because the key to getting shots of the Riverwalk, Toolsy, is making sure that it's cleaned up a little bit.
Yeah, I heard it stinks.
That murky, muddy water that we've grown accustomed to, the NBA is not going to make sure that they showcase that. But if you're going to say the Riverwalk plus the Alamo, I'm going to make over 2.5 a surefire bet. I just hope that we can get a clip of Pee Wee Herman running away from the Alamo, like we get to see in the old days in Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Oh, what a movie. Thanks, buddy.